This is just a quick video on how to vignette the edges or make them darker in Photoshop. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this. You'll find tons of different techniques online. Here's probably just one of the fastest and easiest, and then I'll show you one more after that. I've opened up the image. I'm going to go ahead and click to add a new layer. I can see from the little gray and white checkers on it that it's transparent, as all new layers are in Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and fill the background with white on that layer. So I'm going to click over here to reset my foreground background to white, black and white. And I'm going to click these little arrows to put the white on top. I'm going to hit Command A to select all, and I could either go up to Edit, Fill White, or I'm just going to hit Option Delete, which fills the object with whatever color is in the foreground. I'm going to go up to Filter, Lens Correction. The first time this loads in a document, it's going to take a couple minutes. After that, it's going to go a lot faster. There's a lot of high-end type of stuff up here that you can do from a camera, but the easiest thing we're going to do is up toward the top right corner. There's two tabs, Auto Correction and Custom. Click on the Custom. Most of the way down the page, there's this block that says Vignette, and if I take the slider and shove it all the way to the left, it's going to go ahead and darken it. I'm going to click OK. That doesn't really look like that's doing me a lot of good yet, but if I now go in here and instead of changing the opacity, but I change the layer blending mode from normal to multiply or to darken, I'll end up seeing the edges are much darker here. Just click that on and off to show what that's actually doing. If for some reason I wasn't really happy with that, I liked it, but I thought maybe it was too much, well, clearly I can come back in and change the opacity on that layer by pulling it down some, to just leave a small amount. If for some reason I thought that the shadows crept in too much onto the image, I could go up to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast, a lot of different ways to do this. But if I slid, I'm going to do this to exaggerate, but if I slide this way to the right and click OK, you should be able to tell from these two icons that the original one I did has quite a bit of black. The second one I did here, by manipulating the brightness command, it took a lot of that white and it chewed into the edges. So again, you can still see this slightly, but I've definitely moved it out toward the edges of the thing. I'm going to throw that one back and just leave the standard one in here. Again, with the opacity slid down. I'm going to go ahead and hide that one. Here's another way that I could do this. I'm going to click the new layer icon. I'm going to go ahead and set black to my foreground. I'm going to go find the elliptical marquee tool, which is located under the box. If I wanted to take the time to make sure that this was perfect, I could draw a guideline over about halfway into the image and another one down to split this up into quarters. I can just draw a circle by just pushing and holding down, and you can see it when I let go. But if I was to put the tool right in the middle of the page and hold the Option button down, it actually grows the circle from the exact midpoint of the page. So I can see this right now. It's going to be hard to see on the video until I let go, but I'm going to pull out, 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 and when I am pretty comfortable with where that is, I'm going to go ahead and let go. Or for some reason I didn't get that in exactly the right spot, I'm going to deselect. I need to move my midpoint up some and try that one more time until I get it fairly close to the edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and tell it to select the inverse, which will move the marching ant selection from the oval to everything but the oval. That's why I can see the marching ants out in here. I could also have just done that by holding down Command-Shift-I. That toggles back and forth between my original elliptical selection and everything but the elliptical selection. And then the same type of thing, because I've got this on a brand new blank layer here, and I've got black in the foreground. If I hold down Option and hit Delete, it'll fill my everything but the ellipse with that particular color. I could go ahead and change this to be Multiply. I could go ahead and set the opacity to slide way back, but that's obviously too hard of an edge. But while I'm on that layer, I could go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and now I get to decide how much of a transition this thing is going to make by blurring that particular layer. I'm going to do it about 60 something, and I'm going to click OK. The one benefit of this over the lens correction is the lens correction automatically fixes the exact corners to be part of this. If you do your own ellipse, you get a little bit more control over how much or where that is. I didn't even have to put it in the middle. I could have put it on one side or the other. Or even here, if I wanted to make sure that, well, I like what it's doing up here in the top, but I don't really want that to do that on the sand, I could go into that layer, grab the rectangle tool or some other tool, and just draw a box on it and hit delete. That would have been the same thing as if I'd have taken, basically on this thing, the eraser tool. I could have done the exact same thing. If I wanted to, I could have come in with the eraser tool and I could have said, you know what, I just want it in this corner, which means I could paint that mask out everywhere but that. And if I was to switch this brush mode to something really, really soft, I could start to come in here and slowly chew into where it chose to make that corner up there. You can probably just see that. And that way I just have left on this mask the little darkness in the top right corner, so it's only darkening that particular thing. So again, to vignette an object, make a new layer. If you're going to use the lens correction, fill with white, filter, lens correction, change the vignette on the custom tab to be able to add that. Or I could make any particular layer and I could paint a black object in the background, either by using the ellipse tool, or if I'd have felt like it, I could have just done this whole thing from scratch with a really, really blurry brush with almost no hardness on it. I could have come on that layer and I could have just drawn something by hand, which would then allow me again to adjust that with the opacity layer, because this is set to multiply. Or I could have, if I thought that that wasn't blurry enough, I could go ahead and Gaussian blur that channel. Save it as a Photoshop file, that way you have the layers up above your original where we've done no destructive editing to it. Or you could go ahead and flatten it if you knew that you wanted to save it to a JPEG. Vignetting an edge.